I've been a DPS main for 7 years now. I always felt far too anxious to play roles like tank or healer. I feel there's far too much responsibility involved. If I make a mistake, then the rest of the party suffers the consequences. I decided to take the leap. I decided to try tanking for myself. Now, it was certainly rather rough. I found myself refusing to enter dungeons just because the anxiety was a tad too much to bear. Of course, it isn't really that scary at all, and I now consider myself to be a tank main. Here are some things I've learned, and some things that my FC members, who are far more experienced in tanking than me, passed on. The goal is to help give you the tools that you need to reduce the risk of error, and advice for beginning to overcome the anxiety that you may feel. Let me start by saying, the Final Fantasy XIV community, as a whole, is amazing. The vast majority of people you meet will be absolutely lovely. Even if you make a mistake, people are more likely to want to help you out rather than try to mock you. There isn't a better game for learning how to overcome this tank anxiety, in my opinion. I know it's a cheesy way to present it, but Sun Tzu said, "Know thyself, know thy enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories." Knowing thyself in this context is to understand your abilities. The best way to learn these abilities, if you're brand new, is to go through the Hall of Novice lessons. Doing your job quests as you level up will slowly introduce you to these new abilities, as well as unlock them. Read through ability descriptions thoroughly. Some are much more useful than they may appear. There are some examples of that later. This also extends to gauging the abilities of your party. You're not alone after all, and success is based on the combination of efforts of all of those involved. Don't feel forced to undertake huge pulls if you're not comfortable with it, or don't feel that your healer can keep up. If the healer asks you to go a bit slower for them, oblige. You don't win a medal for finishing quickly. Know that you will make mistakes. We all do. I especially do. But mistakes aren't inherently bad. A mistake that you reflect on and learn from is an opportunity to gain experience and knowledge. The best players failed countless times to gain the level of ability they have now. Refusing to acknowledge mistakes, or not learning from them, is when they become an issue. Now that's true for life in general, not just tanking and MMOs, but I feel it's rather prudent here. Knowing thy enemy means understanding common fight mechanics, and specifics of the fight if it's a high-end trial. Knowing common fight mechanics is essential for ensuring a successful run. Things like AoE markers that show danger zones, tank busters that hit the tanks hard, and other indications of incoming attacks such as the eye marker to show you when you need to turn away to avoid being hit by something. Guides can be used to quickly look out for unique mechanics that may need specific interaction. It's not necessary though. Running blind is of course completely fine, if that's what brings you enjoyment. Ultimately it's a game, and the goal is to have fun. If I'm entering a dungeon and I don't remember all the mechanics, I'll bring up a text guide on my other monitor and read through each boss description during the trash pulls. I don't want to memorize every attack. I'm just looking out for something that may require me to do something different from the norm. Now, some more specific tips and tricks for tanking, as well as some not so sagely advice. The most basic, and yet most important tip, ensure your enmity generation ability is turned on at the start of every run. I still make this mistake more often than I'd like to admit, and it's not the end of the world, but it can get the run off to a bad start if you forget. When pulling mobs, make sure you're using their sprint ability so that you can gather them up quickly, or get a physical ranged DPS that will force you to sprint with peloton. This helps lower the amount of damage you'll take before everyone is set up and ready to attack. Use cooldowns during the pulls so that the healer can get set up without panicking trying to heal you. Cooldowns are best used for trash pulls, so don't be stingy with the intention of saving them for boss fights. Do still of course use them during the boss fights, as they will be needed. On the topic of cooldowns, arm's length. Too many people only use it to negate pushbacks, but being attacked while it's active will slow down the enemy. This makes it a very useful mitigation ability for trash pulls, but the slow effect won't affect many bosses. Provoke is now a great choice of pulling packs. It has a much longer range than other ranged tank abilities. Provoke is an important ability for duties of multiple tanks, so don't waste it if you know you're going to need it later. Let's discuss main tanks and off tanks. Main tanks take the aggro of the boss, while off tanks tend to pick up the adds, or they may tank switch partway through the fight, should the fight have mechanics that require it. Most tanks tend to like playing main tank, and some are rather aggressive about trying to set themselves up in that position. This can lead to enmity battles between two tanks, both wanting to be the main tank. Don't do this. You're putting the run in jeopardy and everyone will hate you. I myself quite enjoy being off tank, and tend to take the role on willingly. It's not quite as appreciated as main tanking, sure, but it's still very important. You can bet the healers will appreciate you when you get those pesky ads off them while they're trying to heal. One final tip, or perhaps this is even a request. Please let people watch cutscenes if they want to. Remember the awe you felt delving into these places for the first time. Don't deprive others of that. That's all. If there are any specific questions you have, if there are any criticisms or things you don't quite agree with, let me know down below and I'll try to address everything that I can. Thanks for watching.